My name is Scott Mathieson from Working In. I'm one of the founders of Working In. We've been helping employers in New Zealand recruit and retain skilled people from around the world for over 20 years now. And today we are discussing some of the forthcoming changes in immigration. So with the level 3 lockdown, we considered actually not running this webinar, but of course, we have people from all over New Zealand listening today, watching today, so that wasn't an option. But also immigration is constantly moving, constantly evolving, and some pretty big changes coming up. So we didn't really want to delay, as what we're seeing is that people are potentially impacted on a daily basis. So immigration doesn't wait. It's like a clock. It just keeps on moving, and you've got to be on the right side of the clock. So before we sort of move into the general topics today, I'd like to introduce you to our two panelists from Working In. First is Nassim Lalehzari. Nassim's been with us for over a decade and leads our immigration team and is one of New Zealand's foremost experts on immigration, especially related to employment immigration. Nassim, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you for that very, very eloquent introduction. Hi everyone, my name is Nassim. I've been with Working In for over 10 years now. I originally grew up in Australia, born in the States, studied law, and I've been working with employers specifically in relation to immigration issues.
Thank you. Yeah, Nassim's a good example of an Australian who has come to New Zealand and decided that she likes it more than Australia. We don't give her any grief about that. Our next panelist is Liam Chase. Liam is relatively new to Working In. He is you could say, a result of the COVID situation. A returning New Zealander, came back to New Zealand from Thailand last year. Liam, it'd be great to get an intro from you.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. Look, my name's Liam Chase. This is my first year here at Working In. My background, I've been working in the immigration space for about 11 years coming on, both as an immigration advisor and an immigration officer. It's been good to be working back on shore. It's a very different market. I've met a lot of you that are joining us today, so welcome along and good to see you again. But yeah, look, it's good to be able to bring a different perspective to the team. The team are great, so hopefully I can complement this webinar today too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we feel privileged to have Liam with us. What he didn't really expand on there is he spent almost a decade in Thailand. He worked for Immigration New Zealand as an officer in Bangkok, and then ran his own immigration business for about 5 years up in Bangkok as well. So huge amounts of knowledge, huge amounts of offshore knowledge, a lot of detail. So yeah, should be a good day today. So what's happening? Where are we now? What's COVID tossed up for us in terms of immigration, and what does this mean for you as an employer for the next 12 months? Arguably, we're seeing some of the biggest changes in immigration in the last 25 years. Irrespective of COVID, these changes were going to take place. But what we've also seen over the last year is more changes in immigration policy than we've ever seen. And Nassim has been sending out updates, which many of you would have received. And each of those updates reflects a change of policy. So I guess the point that we're making is that Immigration New Zealand is changing the policy on a regular basis to manage the changes that are taking place in our environment. And it's very, very challenging for everybody, including us, to keep on top of all the changes and make sure that everybody is compliant. It's extremely challenging for us, so it must be extremely challenging for you as an employer. I guess the biggest thing that is coming ahead of us is employer accreditation, compulsory accreditation. So this impacts employers who are wanting to hire from offshore, which is obviously challenging at the moment, if not impossible for some, but also your staff on visas that are onshore now. So it has a major implication if you hire or are employing people on visas now, because their renewals the renewal of their visas will be impacted. So Nassim, can you give everybody an update of what this accreditation means, the compulsory, and how does it differ to the existing accreditation?
Yeah, sure. So it was late 2019 where the government announced that we were going to be moving to this new model with regards to hiring or supporting migrants on a visa. The interesting thing is that they use the term accreditation again, which is why a lot of companies and also migrants themselves are getting confused, and they think it's one and the same thing. It's not. So at the very moment, employers can get accredited under the talent policy and support a very specific type of visa. But from about mid this year is a new type of accreditation that's required. And this will be gate one in a three-step process in order to support someone with a visa to work for you. So the main difference is that although employers will still need to meet those higher levels of commitment to New Zealanders, have great sort of HR processes, and otherwise meet all employment law requirements, the difference will be the type of visa that the individual will be able to obtain subsequently. So the reason why this is so important is that not only existing employees who need to then subsequently apply for a further visa need to work for a company that is accredited, any further person you're going to want to hire, or even if they're here in New Zealand and you want them to move over to you, you'll need this first step, otherwise they won't be able to work for you. So it is going to be a three-step process. The first one, which is going to be the most crucial, because without it you can't move on, is the accreditation. The second one will be something called a job check. And then the third one is where the migrant actually applies for the visa. So we know that this is coming. The government's given us a lot of leadway and a lot of notice about it. So it's really important that employers are starting to get everything together and prepared so that they can get the first step submitted and sorted. Otherwise, it's going to affect everything else down the line.
Now, Nassim, thanks for that. There's two types of accreditation there, wasn't there? Because I can see we've got some people that are in, small to medium-sized businesses here, and I can see that we've got people from large multinationals. So there is a difference in the accreditation that's being proposed, correct?
There is. There's actually going to be three. There's going to be standard, high volume, and labour hire. So obviously, if you're a labour hire company, you're going to need the labour hire accreditation. It'll be similar to the current labour hire accreditation that companies can get. And then the other one is based on the number of migrants that you think you're going to be supporting in a given year. So most companies will probably find that they need to go for the high volume accreditation, where you've got 5 or more migrant workers that you need to support in a 12-month period.
Okay, so the threshold is 5.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Fantastic. So, Liam, on to you. I mean, you've been meeting a lot of employers prior to Monday. Can you give us an idea of what are the challenges that people on this webinar might face in terms of getting their accreditation together, especially if they are not accredited now? Because especially if you're small, medium, it's there's a lot of work to do.
Sure. Look, it has been eye-opening to be going out and working with our partners outside and seeing some of those challenges. One of the biggest challenges is really how big the task ahead is. It involves things that mostly require HR departments, finance departments, marketing departments, plus your executives. So when you've got a small to medium business, it is very challenging for them because everything is falling on their shoulders. So, what we are doing and the point of us going out and working and talking with our partners and our clients is that we're able to help them manage that process in a way that we can easily pull out different things for different policies that we can see, on a site visit, but potentially the client hasn't been able to see. So, that I think the biggest challenge in all of this is just, the breadth of the upcoming policy. I mean, as you said before, Scott, it's the biggest change, for years since the introduction of the skilled migrant category. So with that, we expect a very big task. some clients are getting a bit overwhelmed with it, and we understand, but that's why we're here. You know, we're here to guide you through that, take as much work as possible off you, so that we can, you know, we can get you through that. It's, you know, we're not going to say it's a walk in the park, because it's just not. It's a massive task.
So when you say it's a massive task, what are some of the things that are required that people
Sure.
can start, you know, considering right now?
Look, you know, in general, employers will have systems in place, but are those systems meeting the expectations of Immigration New Zealand and what they expect to see? A lot of the times it doesn't. You know, the systems aren't up to immigration's standards. So it's really bolstering and boosting, you know, potentially, you know, already in place processes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's a message there, which is start getting prepared now. Yeah, I look at, in all seriousness, that's quite critical. You know, we've been helping companies get accredited for many years now, and there's a lot of compliance, financial, HR systems, and it's admin heavy, and it's time heavy. So we always recommend to our clients that, you know, you really need a very good administration person as your wing person to help you with collating all the information that needs to be collated, because it is an extra job that's being taken on, like a project, to get all this information together. And literally, some of the accreditation papers that we've submitted have been this thick, even more so. So don't underestimate the amount of time or work that's involved and start looking at this now. Another thing we'd like to discuss is this tight labour market. We're in a very, very unusual situation, and we're a business that has brought in thousands of workers from overseas over the last few years, and suddenly the borders have shut, yet we're more busy than we've ever been, because a lot of employees are moving about, and that's not great, because if you've got a person on a visa, more than likely they are fulfilling a role that can't be filled by a New Zealander. So you've probably hired them from offshore, you've probably paid money for them, they're very valuable to you. You don't want them to jump ship, so to speak. Liam, back to you again. What are the main reasons that you find that people are sort of moving employers?
Yeah, look, you've touched base on something that is being felt across many sectors, and a lot of employers in those sectors. What we're seeing is, you know, of course, the employees themselves, they're worried. You know, they're not here with their family. Of course, there's uncertainty around the border. You know, the other thing that we're seeing is that employees are being influenced by other groups or external social circles, which an employer usually has to, you know, compete in terms of opinions. But every time that we do meet with our clients, we say the biggest thing that you can do is communicate. Let them know. The workforce, you know, that are at different, you know, different employers, they know what's going on, and they want to see that employers are being proactive. They understand the changes that are coming up, and that they've started the process. Because, you know, when an employee goes out for lunch on Sunday, they talk, just like we do. We talk. So, you know, communicate to your workforce. Let them know that things are happening, and that you have got things in place, because they need that certainty. It's a very delicate time with a very delicate workforce at the moment.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And no doubt there's New Zealanders on this webinar, and you would well know the feeling of being here on a short-term temporary visa, and the nervousness that can create, or the uncertainty. And so being wearing those shoes, you understand how important it is to be with an employer who's going to support you to stay here. And so that's a real driver. So, you know, Liam's absolutely right. And you can't underestimate how, you know, how big that driver is. You know, you're basically, it's a life driver. You know, people want to stay in New Zealand. They want to make sure that they're secure. It's fundamental on Maslow's hierarchy, really. So we're about halfway through. It's 9:46. The second part of our discussion was about the labour market and the tight labour market, and we've touched on people potentially jumping ship, but there is going to be a change in the median wage coming up. Nassim, do you want to run through what that means and how that will impact the listeners today?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of, so Liam explained that lots of migrants know what the deal is and what they need to be working towards. And so when we're speaking to employers, we hear them ask questions like, oh, why is so-and-so telling me they need to earn X or Y amount to get a visa? Now, a lot of the pay requirements are within the policy. So they're within the immigration policy that says if you earn $25.50, you can currently apply for an essential skills visa and get a 3-year visa because you're at or above the median wage. So it was about 1.5 years ago where the government introduced specific reference to the median wage to decide whether or not someone was skilled or not skilled. People have asked where do they get these numbers from? Well, they get this from Stats NZ. So there was some talk earlier last year where people were asking, why are all my staff asking to be paid $27, for example? The reason for that is that lots of migrants had cleverly worked out, keeping their ear to the ground, that the median wage had been announced by Stats NZ to be $27 an hour. Now, the government has decided, because of COVID, because of the uncertainty at the time and in support of employers, that at the moment, they're going to stick with the $25.50, but from about July this year, the median wage that will be applied to temporary visas will be the $27. By extension, we can assume that will also apply to residence applications once those are open as well. So what this means is that for a lot of people on a visa who maybe aren't at that pay rate, they're actually worried about whether or not they can get a visa when it comes time to renew, or they can extend out the time that they're here in New Zealand. Now, if you're not willing to pay a higher amount because of whatever business reasons that you might have, the migrant worker is going to go and look to someone who can. The reason being is they know that if they can't have the job with you, someone else will offer it to them because nobody else is able to come into the country at the moment. So what this is causing is, even if the individual was quite happy where they were, there's these other forces pulling them to look at other offers because they just want to secure the length of time that they're able to stay in New Zealand. So this is what happens. What we're seeing is that, a company, like Liam said, that hadn't maybe communicated to their staff, we're going through the accreditation process, we're getting everything prepared so that you will be able to stay with us long term. You're important to us in our business. That person might be, might get shoulder tapped and say, oh, you can come and work for me. I'll pay you $1 an hour, more, whatever it might be. We're in the process of getting accreditation. Your future is secure with me. Come and work here. And so then you have this movement just because of the uncertainty. And then you also see an increase in base wages as well. So I understand that that's part of what the government wanted, but in the short term, it might work, but it won't be sustainable long term for some industries.
Thanks, Nassim. So to be clear, the current median wage is $25.50 per hour. It's increasing at some point in the future. That hasn't been fully decided, but it's July. It's been suggested by Immigration New Zealand to $27 an hour, correct? And for people who are going to be under $27 an hour, they will only get issued a visa for 6 months. Yeah. But if it's over, then it's 3 years. Yeah. So there's quite a big difference there, as you can see for the employee. If they're going to be under 27 an hour come July, then they're only going to be getting a 6-month visa, which doesn't give them the assurances or the confidence of a future. Over 27 an hour, 3 years, massive assurance. So quite a clever policy by the government. I'm just going to add, someone's just said, is the median wage the minimum wage? No. So the minimum wage will be going up to $20 an hour on April 1. It's currently $18.90. The median wage is the median wage, which is being set for immigration purposes. Okay, so we've got 9 minutes to go. Nassim, you did mention something about the border restrictions, and I think it's worth noting now that whilst the borders are closed, and there's a lot of debate on whether they should be closed even more with this new strain, the reality is that there are border exceptions. We are, as a business, assisting a number of employers bring in people from all parts of the world in different industries. Do you want to just quickly explain the border exemption process, because the borders aren't closed in effect, and there are ways of bringing in skilled people if they meet specific requirements?
Sure. So as well as anyone that might be a family member of a New Zealander, or would otherwise have an easier way into New Zealand, for employers that are looking to support their workforce, there is the ability to support those that were employees that worked for you and then were caught offshore, and you can make an application to get them in as an exception. The other one that seems to be of particular interest to a lot of employers is those new hires. So the individuals that might have been offered a job but then weren't able to enter because of the sudden border closure. And for those individuals, the common way that we bring them into the country is by saying that they meet the other critical worker criteria. So they're not necessarily health individuals. They have their own category. So your nurses, doctors, chiropractors, physiotherapists, but those that might be in infrastructure, entertainment, any other sort of occupation that you can think of, we can fit them in some instances under the other critical worker. It's really important that a very, very strong case is put together to explain why that individual is critical to New Zealand and why now. So obviously it might depend on your company and your situation as to how that submission is put together. But to date, we've successfully been able, to assist a large number of people to be able to come in under that policy. So it is possible, but it is also a lot of hard work, and it's obviously can't be guaranteed.
Thanks. Yeah, look, I will make a point that we have brought in people, not just in the healthcare industry, but various infrastructure, entertainment, and one person in particular, we had to make the application, I think it was 3 times, so on the 4th time, we actually got the approval. So if you have made an application for a border exception and you've been pushed back, it doesn't necessarily mean that no means no. Contact us if you'd like. We can look at the case and we can potentially prepare it in a different way. What Immigration New Zealand want to see is potentially different to what you're seeing. And yeah, we have had quite a lot of success in border exceptions. Look, there's a number of questions coming through. I'm not going to be able to answer all these questions as we talk. We've only got 5 minutes to go, but we will take these questions and email out answers to you all. So if you do have any more questions in the next 5 minutes, fire them in and we'll prepare a Q&A sheet and reply over the next couple of days. So it's 5 minutes to go. I just wanted to go back to Liam, and I just want to ask you, Liam, as a returning New Zealander, we had a situation. This is quite interesting, and I think it's relevant to everybody who's on this webinar, because obviously we are enjoying record numbers of New Zealanders returning home. We had a situation the other day, really interesting situation, where a New Zealander had been in France for 20 years. She had come back in December with her 2 children, but her husband, who was French, was still in France. Now, she obviously wanted him to become a permanent resident and a citizen. but didn't realise that you have to make that application for PR within 3 months of her arrival. So even though you would expect that if I'm married to somebody and I'm coming home and I'm a New Zealander, that my partner would enjoy permanent residency immediately, immigration works a little bit differently. Liam, what's your experience? Because I know that it wasn't as easy as you'd expect.
No, absolutely. Look, we working at the New Zealand Embassy in Bangkok. We were one of the hub branches for the region. So we would see a lot of New Zealanders wanting to bring their partners to New Zealand, and sometimes it was more of the perception that there was the right to bring them back. And of course, look, COVID has caught everyone by surprise. So I want to go home. I want to bring my partner. What's the problem? The problem is that immigration law is different to family law. While the New Zealand government may recognise your relationship, that doesn't really come into play with immigration in New Zealand. So a lot of New Zealanders are not fully aware of the processes, especially for people who have partners where their partners have been coming to New Zealand for years without a visa. And that's because they come in under the visa waiver program or reciprocal programs. But under the current circumstances and current environment, visas are required. Now, the PR process is one. There are special policies out there for people who have lived overseas, and the purpose of that visa was to encourage our New Zealanders to come back and make it easier by bringing their partner and giving them permanent residence. But of course, with everything in immigration, a policy has 15 other policies underneath it. And Kiwis, we just look at the headline. That's it. I can go home. But once you get back, they're not very aware, or we're not aware that immigration is a lot more detailed than normal. So look, there's going to be a lot of New Zealanders that have come back and may not know about the detail needed for a partnership visa. I would say partnership visas are some of the hardest. It's so detailed and so hard that Immigration New Zealand have created a special branch for this policy, and it's one of the biggest branches in Hamilton. So look, if there are Kiwis out there that have brought their partners back and going through that process, and there are, I'm one of them, so there are going to be lots. So get in touch with us, because it's not as easy as a lot of Kiwis think. Here's a marriage certificate.
Thanks, Liam. Look, absolutely. So our message is, if you are hiring New Zealanders that are coming home, fantastic, but don't think it's a slam dunk for their partners. As an employer, you would be doing the employee, the returning Kiwi, a massive service by taking the extra step to inquire how policy might impact them and their family, because that's why they're coming back, for security, and it's gutting to find out until it's too late that there's going to be problems for their partner down the track. So keep that in mind. It's returning New Zealanders are impacted as well if they've got a partner. So look, it's 10 o'clock now. There's always lots to talk about immigration, but we've got work to do, things to do, what you all do. So if you have any more questions, please contact us directly, either through our website or through our personal email addresses. Obviously, we like to help employers. We're an employer-facing business. That's where we sort of sit in the market, if you like. Our role is to help you hire people from offshore, but also critically retain your migrant staff. So there's a lot of things that we can do, even if it's just having a look under the hood to see if everything's okay. We call it a mini audit. Make sure that you're on top of all the visa expiry dates. What happens if someone's moving from a work visa to a residence visa? Is that all locked down? Just things like that. Ensure that you sleep at night, really. That's our job. So I don't know, Nassim, if you have any last comments.
I'll unmute myself first. I was just going to say that if anyone does have any questions, I can see that there's quite a few coming through. We will respond to everyone. We'll send out the Q&A. But if anybody else has any other specific questions regarding their business or their workers or anything like that, feel free to just contact us directly and we'll be able to work out a solution to ensure that everything continues smoothly in your company.
Thank you, Liam.
Look, prepare, communicate, and you know those are the two biggest things that I you know give in terms of advice to our employer partners, is really communicate to your staff and prepare. The government gave us 2 years to prepare, but their messaging has been poor at best. So,
Okay.
you know, yeah.
Got it. Thanks very much. Okay, we're 2 minutes over now, so I feel a little bit guilty of soaking up other people's time. So thank you very much for joining us on this webinar today. As Nazim and Liam said, please contact them, very approachable people. Have a good day, keep safe, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.